The enigmatic shadow of the flame. On the coldest night Darnmoor had ever known, when the snow piled against doorframes like the weight of forgotten sins and the sky hung black and low over the frozen village, a strange fire appeared in the square. It was no ordinary flame, no torch, no lantern. It hovered inches above the ground, silent and unwavering, untouched by the howling wind that tore through the crooked chimneys and shuttered windows. It flickered with a colorless heat, casting thin, unnerving shadows that writhed like living things across the frost-slicked cobblestones. Sheriff Amos Griggs was the first to approach, his boots crunching through the silence, his brow furrowed in skeptical defiance. The villagers watched from their windows, breath fogging the glass, as he extended a gloved hand toward the flame. And just like that, no scream, no flash, no sign, he was gone. Vanished. The flame pulsed once, as if satisfied. From that night on, the village of Darnmoor was gripped by a growing terror, one that spread not through sound, but sensation. People began waking in the small hours, heartbeats loud in their chests, drawn to their doors by a quiet, relentless urge. They would feel their names echo, not spoken aloud, but felt inside their bones. The pull was gentle, sorrowful, like the longing of someone you loved calling for help. And if they opened their doors, if they stepped outside, they too were never seen again. The flame, it seemed, was not content to remain in the square. It began to appear elsewhere, at bedroom windows, behind cracked mirrors, in the heart of dreams. Always it hovered. Always it beckoned. And always it was followed by the shadow. It was not cast by the flame as light normally would. No. It came with it, like a parasite. It moved wrong. Too fluid, too tall, stretching across walls and ceilings with limbs too long, a head that tilted in slow, unnatural curiosity. Sometimes it looked human. Sometimes it didn't. It would stand at the foot of your bed, still and watching, and vanish the moment you blinked. The villagers were breaking under the fear. They nailed boards across their windows, burned sage, prayed in hushed, shaking voices. But still, the flame came. And the shadow waited. It was then, amid the rising dread, that Eleanor Vale stepped into the story. A woman long dismissed as mad, she lived alone at the edge of the forest in a crumbling cottage filled with dried herbs, strange charms, and the scent of burning lavender. She claimed, with trembling hands and eyes clouded by memory, that she had seen the flame before, over 50 years ago, in the smoking ruins of the old convent chapel up the northern ridge. She had been young then, a nun in training, and only barely survived what she called the first breach. "It lies," she whispered to the councilman, who dismissed her with scoffs and sideways glances. "It wears the faces you've lost. It speaks in longing and regret. It feeds on fear, on guilt, on what you don't say out loud." The villagers laughed. Until the children began to see things. A boy claimed his mother, dead 5 winters past, had knocked on his window, eyes hollow, asking to come in. Another child wept, saying her older brother, who had drowned last year, stood in the square inside the flame and asked her to hold his hand. She almost did. Almost. Then came the outsiders, for researchers in dark SUVs, funded by some anonymous institution with government clearance and heavy equipment. They set up sensors, filmed the flame from a distance, and took samples of the scorched earth beneath it. But they were not immune. On the second night, all communication was lost. Their camp was found charred and empty, except for one half-burned notebook that read in manic handwriting, "This is not a flame. It is a breach. A door to something else. The shadow wants through. The shadow knows your name." After that, the village accepted a dreadful truth: this thing, whatever it was, could not be reasoned with. It was not a ghost. Not a demon. It was older, deeper. Something beneath the world, clawing upward through emotion, through memory. And every time someone fell into its call, it grew. And yet, In the face of all this, Eleanor returned to the place it all began, the ruined chapel. Her steps were slow, her breath ragged, but her heart was steady. The air was colder there. Even the snow avoided the scorched stones. She stood before the altar and struck a match, its tiny flare shaking against the darkness. "I am not afraid," she said, not loudly, but with iron in her voice. The flame answered, blooming before her. Its shadow reached out like a lover, winding up the walls. Eleanor did not run. She did not scream. She stepped forward, and into the fire. For a moment, the ruin filled with light. And then, nothing. The flame was gone. The shadow receded. And for a time, peace returned to Darnmoor. But peace is never permanent. Every year, on the coldest night, when the wind howls and the stars disappear, a small flame returns to the ruins of that chapel. It hovers, waiting. Sometimes flickering. And if you stand too close, if you look too long, you'll see a woman's silhouette standing quietly in the glow. Her face calm. Her eyes unblinking. Watching. Guarding. Or perhaps, simply waiting for the next name to be called. The story teaches us that fear and loss can feel overwhelming, but facing them with courage and hope can bring peace. It reminds us that memories and love endure, even through the darkest times. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe.